Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. Today, I have with me Ian Dempsey. Now, he is the self-proclaimed Erling Haaland of IFAs. So if you follow football, you'll probably know he's the striker at Man City who's just lit the Premier League alight. And his video content, Ian's video content, not Erling Haaland's, has really been taking LinkedIn by storm over the last year. And if you've ever seen one of his videos, the one thing that stands out is his accent, which I'm going to get you to listen to in a minute and try and take a guess as to where he's from. So Ian's been self-employed at The Money Man for the last year, and he's amassed 37,000 followers on LinkedIn, which is absolutely gigantic. And today he's going to talk us through some of the strategies of how he's done that and how it helps his business as well. So without further ado, Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. What an intro that was, wasn't it?
I was hoping you're going to put a different accent on there. Just
do you know what? In my head, I thought I'm going to just put a different one on just to give it a go. But it would have probably been terrible, and I would have offended a load of people. So I'll just stick to the natural one for now.
I want to hear like a Russian or a Jamaican accent come out on your next video. Do a shout out with an accent. I could do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks very much for coming on. I mean, I feel like I already know you, because I've watched so many of your videos over LinkedIn, and I think I got to know you from, you did a 7 mortgage tips in 7 days, and I noticed you were getting comments all day, every day. And I'll be honest with you, I started looking at it and I was cynical. I was like, I must be part of a LinkedIn pod or something, and people are commenting. But then looked at the comments and it was people actually saying like, this is really valuable to me. Actually, I'm not going to go into that just yet because I don't want to get into the good stuff. I want to get a bit of a background to you, who you are, and how you got into the industry.
Yeah, of course. So I'll go right back at the start. My dad's an IFA. My mum was a mortgage advisor in a bank. Kind of, they split up like when I was 8. So I kind of saw both sides of the industry. Feel like never ever wanted to get into it. Just wasn't on the agenda. Never fancied it at all. Just found it all a little bit boring. Like I got to my dad's office after work and I'd just be like, oh my God, I hope I never have to work in a place like this, because it was just bland and boring, but could see the benefits of it because my dad kind of gave us a great life. My mum did exactly the same as well, but kind of fell into it. Like I'd worked in sales after being to university, done like call center work. And this is where the accent comes in. The Geordie accent does really well over the phone. So it kind of smashed that, enjoyed the sales, the bonuses and all the rest of it. And then me and me now ex-wife at the time decided we're going to move back to Newcastle because we live down near Milton Keynes now. And I moved up there. She decided it wasn't going to be quite right. So I moved back down like 12 months later, fell into a job in financial services for City Financial at the time, doing subprime loans. Loved kind of dealing with people. They were then going to launch their own mortgage proposition. So they were looking for, I think it was like 8 or 9 people to kind of do their mortgage qualifications. No one was really interested in it. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Did the qualification. They then said, we're not going to launch now. So I left, went to Britannia Building Society as a mortgage broker. But like the financial advice stuff really stood out for me from the start because for a couple of reasons, we had AXA. So AXA came in and they had the financial advice relationship in the branch. All the financial advisors came in, didn't have to wear a uniform. They wore their own suits, had nice cars. They kind of had freedom over the day. Started having a chat with a couple of them that earned really well, much more than what I was kind of earning, if not 2 to 3 times more, for what felt like not quite the same level of work, because you were just, I suppose, just volume going through, and I just caught my eye in it. I thought I need to look at it. So then did my qualifications with Santander to HSBC, HSBC to SJP, then to Quilter, then to kind of where I am now. But really fell out of love with financial services a few times during that process. The first one was when I got made redundant from Santander because I loved the branch I was in. Like I started off in a small one, ended up working my way up to being in the flagship branch, and it was phenomenal. The branch was really good, had a great BM, great team. We were top branch all the time, all the perks and bells and whistles that came with that, good bonuses, good earning money. And then I got made redundant. So moved across to HSBC. I thought that proposition was a little bit more sophisticated. But that transition from Santander to HSBC was the start of the me falling out of love with financial services because I just felt like it was really prescriptive.
Mhm.
Like you sit down, go through a process, and 90% of clients would come up with exactly the same income. So I thought, I've got one more roll of the dice, and then I'm done with financial services. So
Wow.
it was pretty big because I just thought, like, where's the value for clients in this? Like, I get they're a big beast. All these banks are. They've got great advisors that work for them, but it's a really rigid process, which I understand. I get it because you've got to have that in place when you've got that many people working for you. You need to make sure it's like the old McDonald's process, isn't it? Like wherever you get a cheeseburger, it's going to be exactly the same. You want the same across the bank, and it just didn't quite fit with what I wanted to get. So left and went to work for one of the top 5 practices in SJP. Loved that initially, and then got a knock on the door from Quilter at the time, and they put an offer in front of me that I couldn't refuse. Was then made redundant from them over lockdown, and then just took the job to go self-employed. And last roll of the dice for me was I need to get this IFA itch scratched, and have that proposition to see what a difference it makes, and love it. Like haven't looked back since.
Now you're making videos about buying a 250 grand car, which we'll get into because that was a really good video on LinkedIn. But it just shows that now I think a lot of people that come on the podcast almost have that corporate background for the training, the rigidity, the knowledge. And then now you've got that knowledge, you're like, right, how can I put my spin on it? That sounds very much how you're doing it. And exactly why I wanted to get on the podcast, because you are not just another suit in the mortgage or the IFA world. You're somebody completely different, which has shown why you've got success on the likes of LinkedIn. So take us back and tell us the story of you've gone self-employed because you've been made redundant in lockdown, and you're like, right, where am I going to start getting business from? Because you told me the story about the LinkedIn before we started the podcast. Tell us that story.
Yeah. So I'd kind of started I was employed at the start of lockdown, and lockdown was a real challenge for a lot of people, especially in financial services, that initial phase, because everybody was sat at home. Like probably like most people, we thought it would be 2-3 months and we'd all be back to work. So the business at the time said, don't worry, look after your family, make sure everything's okay. That didn't quite sit with me. So I really started looking at LinkedIn, social media, how it worked. I'd used a couple of LinkedIn coaches in the past. One of them was like real detail and came in and gave us like training session with like a yellow pages book of how to use LinkedIn. And it was naff, to be honest. It didn't quite fit. It was all, but something in there must have piqued my attention, because I thought if it's done properly, this could work really well, but I just didn't feel like that was the proper way of doing it. And then lockdown hit. Nobody in the team, I think it was 2 or 3 of us that were writing business, and I thought, writing's on the wall here. I've been through redundancy a few times. I need to protect myself as much as possible. And rather than spending my time sat outside in the sunshine and having a great old time with Pims at like 10 o'clock in the morning, like most people were over lockdown, I thought,
like a normal Tuesday for you, yeah.
Like, but listen, I got to that point eventually, like most people did, but just kind of thought, I need to kind of figure out like where I'm going to get business from, because if this carries on for any length of time, I can't do me networking. I can't go knock on accountants and solicitors' doors. That's gone. I can't go and ask clients for referrals. It needs to be all digital. So really started looking at LinkedIn, found a LinkedIn coach who was just at the start of her LinkedIn coaching journey, Leah Turner. Phenomenal, really, really good at what she does. And just spent a bit of time with her in a coaching session, just finding out about LinkedIn. And like I said to you earlier, she talked about personal brand. And the first thing she said to me was, we're not going to tell you how to get leads, and I'm not going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to talk to you about personal brand. And I'm like, coming from the corporate world where I've always been employed, I'm like, personal brand doesn't exist in that world, because they don't want somebody with a personal brand. I think it's changing, but certainly then didn't want anybody with a personal brand. They want someone with a corporate brand. Like, you represent our brand, you're going to do it our way, this is the way you do it, and that's how things work, which I get. So I just had the training and sat on it for anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks. I did nothing with it. And she
really?
I didn't get it. Like, I didn't get it. And then she just kept badgering me, just saying, put your first bit of content out. and just get started. So I did. And then the first bit of content was atrocious. The second one was a little bit better. And then it just got better and just built and built over a period of time. And then lockdown really started to bite, and people were sat at home. People are realizing this isn't a short-term thing. And I think timing wise, I was quite fortunate that people really started looking at, well, actually, now I'm at home and I've got all this extra spare money. What should I be doing with it? And this is the first time I've sat down and thought about like what my future could look like. People started to become a lot more attuned with like the financial planning space and what they should be doing. Like will writers were busy, mortgage advisors were busy, we were getting busy. And it just made sense to start using LinkedIn effectively and putting that content out more. And I just really started enjoying it, and it become a really valuable part of my day. Just an hour a day consistently. I mean, at the start, it was a lot more than an hour a day because you had to build your network and all the rest of it. But once it turns, it can turn really, really quickly. It's then keeping that momentum up to keep it going.
And what's interesting is you talking there, and I want listeners to really take this in, is you started with 0, now you're at 36,000. But even at 0, you were still hesitant to do it because you didn't think it would work, did you? And this is the thing, you've got to start. Your first post, your first video, your first blog, your first image that you create is going to be terrible. I remember the first podcast episode I did this took me about 3 goes, and I was sat there sweating because it's always going to be bad the first go. But people listening to this just realize you've got to start. And with LinkedIn, personal branding will always win on LinkedIn because it's had so many years of been in the doldrums, of being very grey and very dull. So anybody that does something a bit different, like Ian does and like Leah Turner has done, and Leah Turner does fantastic coaching with people to make people stand out from the crowd and be a bit different, but still true to yourself. And we'll get into that shortly. But so you're talking about every day you were posting, okay? What can you give our listeners a few tips of the do's and don'ts on LinkedIn to increase engagement, which eventually will lead to leads?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great ones. I think initially you need to be really, really clear before you get started about who your ideal client is and why. Like for me, it was business owners, CEOs, and company directors, and like the real clarity around that was I spent a lot of time looking back over my journey so far in financial services and thinking which clients, and it was individuals like names that kind of popped in my head, which clients have been really good to deal with, really saw the value in what I did, and there was very little friction in getting everything done from start to finish. And it was clients at that level because they understand there's a cost to advice. They know they haven't got the time to do it, and they want someone else to do it for them. So I got really clear on that. And then it was about looking at your profile and think of your LinkedIn profile at any social media platform as that's your interactive business card. That's your interactive business card, and you want people to look at that, and then you need to grab their attention on the first screen. So when you log on to LinkedIn and you see your page up on the screen, like with anything, you've got seconds to be able to grab somebody's attention, and that needs to resonate with your ideal client. If it doesn't, then keep rewriting and writing and writing and changing. I still change and tweak until it does, because until you've got that right, your content could be amazing, but if people then look at your page and think that's a bit naff or doesn't quite resonate with the content you're putting out, then it's not going to work. You need to get the two aligned. And like you said, with your content, it's about if you don't know how to do it, engage people that can. There are copywriters out there. There are people that write posts for somebody. There are marketing agencies that will do this for you. If you haven't got the time to do it, find an expert that can. But if you want to do it yourself, it's then about thinking, like for me, we're great at planning in financial services. That's what we do. We're financial planners. Just plan your life. Like get a sheet of paper and do a life plan for yourself, and think about like great personal stories. Think about great knowledge that you've got, like all this information that we've got that we could share with people. Because once you get out into the big wide world, you realize that the vast majority of people don't know what we know. So share everything. Like share everything. And that's what I'll always do. I'll share absolutely everything that I know, which kind of goes against what a lot of the industry does. And if people want to then use me because they've read my content, or they get some value or benefit from it and go and do it themselves, great. that's amazing.
Just want to pick up on something you said there. Share what you know, because in this industry, it's boring. Okay, we all know that finance people don't like talking about finance or bury their head because it's quite a sensitive subject. But when you say share what you know, how do you make sharing what you know interesting to people? Because, like you said at the beginning, you can't do posts about what's happened to the FTSE or what's happened to investments because people don't really resonate with it. How do you make your content interesting here?
You've got to get your own personality into it. Like, what if I wrote content for you and you want to talk about pensions? It wouldn't work because that's not you. Like, you need to really think about, like, what's your relationship with clients, and when you deal with clients, like, what are those meetings like? What are the plus points? And just become a little bit more aware of it than you would do normally, and maybe make mental notes, or you'll have a pen and paper in front of you, just scribble down stuff because you'll be taking notes anyway. And just think about how you are with clients. How you talk to a client has to be ideally how you come across on social media. So if you're really technical with clients and you deal with a certain niche of clients, then your content will be really technical because that's how you come across. But like for me, it was always about making clients relaxed and letting them feel like, do you know what? I'm like you. We could go and have a beer in a pub. We could have a joke and a laugh. And I try and have that with every client. Just like, laughter is a great thing to kind of help clients settle down. I've always done that. Sometimes it backfires spectacularly and they think, who's this plonker? But you know, like the majority of the time it works, right? So I try and inject a little bit of that in, but it's finding your own personality and putting that in and feeding that into what works with clients to get that across. Because if you read your post back and you read it out loud and it doesn't sound like you need to write it again. Because if it doesn't sound like something that you would say, it's not you. Write it again. Keep the content of it like the same, but like rewrite it and do it differently because it makes such a difference to you. Like a lot of the stuff that I put out now is I would have that conversation with someone in a pub or a client. Like I'm pretty black and white with clients and be quite abrupt at times because actually a lot of clients want to hear that. They don't want the flowery stuff or the really technical stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's me. And it takes time. Like you said at the start, it takes time. Your first post is going to be bad. Your second post will be a little bit better. And you'll go through peaks and troughs. But over time, you'll figure out what kind of content works. You'll start to be recognized for a certain style that you're going to put out. And it just gradually starts to build. And as you get more confident with it, it'll feel easier. Like the hardest part for me was writing content to get started. That was tough. I found that really difficult.
And you've made a switch into video now, which we'll talk about. But trying to come up with ideas is one of the biggest pain points, especially that we find with our clients, because we can do it for them. We can come up with the ideas. But if you're not in a position where you can't outsource your social media content creation, I think, and I've just thought of this, a great tip from, and Ian touched on it, was have a bit of paper nearby you and write out the questions that people are asking you on your calls. But why not on your form? So say if you have an internal form that you use that the client might not see, it's just a bit of a section at the bottom called social media. And when you print that out, when you're on that appointment, write down 3 questions that you've answered in this appointment that you could use for social media content. Just think of that, how much, say if you do 3 appointments a day, that's 9 appointments, 9 ideas, and you do 4 or 5 full days. It's nearly 45 topics for social media ideas. That's a great way to do it, I think. Like you've said, have a bit of pen and paper next to you and make a note of all the questions that you're asked.
100%. And actually, you don't need to reinvent this stuff as well. Like if you posted something, let's say a couple of years into your journey, like I'm constantly repurposing stuff that I've done before. So I'm not thinking of fresh ideas all the time. I'll repurpose something I did a year ago and bring it back because people don't always remember that. And like just think of the areas you give advice on as well. Like if you give investment advice, pension advice, inheritance tax advice, like what are the key areas that people need to know that they just don't? And pensions are a great, pensions aren't exciting. Like I don't get excited by them. Nobody does. But like when you're in front of clients and talking about the pensions, what's the things that they talk about the most? And I guarantee it'll be, I wish I'd started sooner. I wish I'd understood the value of this a lot sooner when I was in my 20s and 30s and paid more in. So should have started sooner, should have paid more in, should have maybe taken more risk, obviously dependent on their circumstances when they were younger. never got involved with the employer's pension scheme, but I should have done. Like, you've got 4 posts there to start with already, and just like plan it out. Like, take an hour out your day when you can sit down as completely quietly. And for me, it's Sunday evenings, and just write stuff down. And don't think you can go on the hop, and on tomorrow morning you could write a post and go live with it. You could, but it won't be as good as if you've sat on that post for a couple of days, because I guarantee you'll look at it again and rewrite it.
So this is where I'm going to go into a bit of a detail and almost talk about your blueprint of creating social media posts. So could you take us through the steps that you take from coming up with an idea, creating that post, whether it be written, whether it be video, editing it, and then uploading? What does that process look like, and how long does it take you?
So I batch my content. So I will sit down, and like I said there, on a Sunday evening, and I will write a load of stuff down, and I'll try and do it into certain areas. So there'll be an investing, there'll be pensions, there'll be protection, there'll be personal posts, and there'll be money related posts. So you'll see, if you follow anybody in market and talk about like 5 pillars, having 4 pillars. So you've got certain areas that you'll always talk about. And I'll then sit and think, right, well, what can I talk about investing this week? Like, what's happened in the markets, or what clients have I seen this week who I've made a big impact for, or I haven't made any impact for, or they've got really great returns, or a story about when a client invested for the first time. What can I glean out of that? And just bullet point stuff on a sheet of paper. Just write it down as much as you can, and then go back and visit it once you've written it all down, and see if you can expand it out. It's just like building a plan for a client. Like, start with your title. If you can start with a hook, like a great hook or a great title for your post, start with that, and then just expand it out. And just keep writing until you're comfortable with it. That's probably, so for me, I'll sit down, I'll write a load of stuff down and think, right, how can I get that from a text post to a video post? Because a text post isn't going to translate the same as a video. So what I'm doing now is I'll take the best text post that I've written and think, I'm going to record that in front of a camera. So I'll sit down in front of the camera, talk to the camera as if I was talking to a client, and then watch it back. Does it make sense? Does that sound like me talking? And even now, sometimes it doesn't. So I won't use it, or I'll go back and edit it and change it again. And then when I've got 5 to 10 posts that I'm really happy with, send it into financial promotions. They'll sign it all off and all the rest of it. And then I've got 5 bits ready to go. I'll then monitor that. And if 2 of those posts absolutely smash it, they'll go into a separate folder. They'll go to a separate folder so I can use that in 6 to 12 months' time, because I know they've done really well. And I'll look at that in 6 to 12 months' time and think, how has that worked? What was it that really worked out of that post? Was it because it was something really topical? Or was it because everybody loved how I've explained X? And if it's something topical, that might not work because you're 12 months out of date. But if it's something that clients can read, people can really relate to and understand that you've just debunked or demythed, absolutely, I'll use that again, and just keep doing that.
How do you analyze those posts? So it's done really well. It's maybe had lots of interaction, or you've had messages off the back of that post. How do you work out what value it brought to people?
So there's a couple of different ways I look at. Like, I look at how many leads I've had over the week. So I will look at how many leads I've had over the week. If I've had leads from a specific post, what specific post. And there's a few kind of posts that I know now that I could post to get really turn the tap on and get a flurry of leads come through. I will look at interactions, so how many interactions I've had, how much engagement I've had on the post as well. But ultimately, people call them vanity metrics, because they'll think, well, does it really matter how many people have seen your post, how many people have interacted? I disagree, because when you first get started and you haven't got your first lead, that's all you've got. All you've really got to start with is, are more people looking at the post and are more people interacting? And aim to kind of build that over a period of time and increase. And certain posts and certain styles will absolutely bomb. And if that's the case, figure out why. Like, you're not going to post about Christmas at Easter time, are you? So you kind of, is it the timing of the year? Is it the content that you put out? Is it because nobody's really interested in the 20% tax relief you get on a pension, or whatever it might be, and just try and evolve and think. And it's
You do a lot
hard when you
of
first get going.
Yeah, I was about to say you do a lot of analysing, and I suppose at the beginning you are analysing more because you want to find out what works.
Mm.
So you've uploaded the content, you've done. I'm going to talk about a specific post in a moment, but you've got some text-based posts that will generate 80 comments. Is
Yeah.
there a magic answer of how to get that many comments on a post, Ian?
No, but I think you'll yes and no. There's not a
Okay.
formula that would necessarily work for me that would work for you, but the yes answer would be if it comes across as you, like there's nobody else out there that could have written that post, then you're injecting your personality in it, then that's the way that it's got to come across. I think the formula I try and stick to is, and I'll use a great analogy here, is like, think of your opening line when you write a title on your post as if you're writing a headline for the Sun. Now, as much as I'm not a big fan of the Sun newspaper or the Red Sheet, that some of their headlines are superb. Because you will look at some of the headlines and you'll either pee yourself laughing or think, crikey, that's a bit close to the edge. But they work because it gets your attention. Like, you've got to draw people in really quickly. And if you look on LinkedIn, you've maybe got 2 sentences. If you want someone to look at the rest of the post, you've got to grab that attention. You've got to grab it quickly. And then you've got to give the person a reason to read on. And if you can do that, then you can kind of go further forward. And we live in a world now where people's got short attention spans. I think TikTok's made that probably even worse because it's instant stuff. Like, you've got a minute and you've got to get it done and you've got to get your point across. Like, think of it like that, and almost like you're explaining to someone who doesn't understand this stuff. Keep it really, really simple. And that's really
Keep it as
powerful.
simple as possible. I like
Yeah,
that
of
you
course.
touched on headlines, because there was one headline that actually grabbed me the other day, and it was, have you got 250 grand to spend on a car? And that was the video that you released. Can you talk us through that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that one was all about mindset. Like, I talk a lot about mindset for people to think about like what they want to do with their money, because as a planning industry, we're all too often focused on the numbers. And for me, it's not about the numbers. That's not where the value is. So what I'm trying to do now is to get the value across, to get people thinking about this stuff. And the post was about justifying spending 250 grand on a car. And actually, as humans, we're really good at justifying what we spend. And one of the things I certainly talk about with clients is where they spend their money. Is that important to them? Because actually, if it's not important to them and it's not going towards the future, why are they spending it? Like, we could both go out and justify spend 250 grand on a car, 100%. Even if you haven't got the 250 grand, you could convince yourself enough to go and spend 250 grand on a car. You might regret it afterwards, but you could do it. The question is, like, can you justify that purchase in 10 years' time? And if you can't, then why are you doing it? Because otherwise, we're going to be having the same conversation in 10 years' time. And it's just about getting people to think about their spending a little bit differently. And ultimately, yeah, do you know what? Spending 20 quid a week in Costa, people say that's not going to make a difference if I stop doing that. Of course it is. Like, there are lots of advisors out there that say, oh, £20 a month ain't going to make a difference. Well, yes, it is, because that's your first step. Like, if that's your first step of having 20 quid that you can do something with, then game on. Like, that deserves massive praise, because you can't build 100 unless you can start with 20, and you can't build 1,000 unless you start with 100. You're never going to get to a pension of £1 million unless you start with those first small few steps. And I think we're so guilty as an industry of being able to say, oh, well, we don't really deal with people unless they've got 100 grand. And I think that's a
It's
real
not
shame.
fair, is it? Because you
No.
want to make sure that you. But then I'm going to play a devil's advocate here. Why are we going just after business owners then? And I understand as to why you're doing it, because they're easier to deal with and you probably are going to get better returns with a higher amount of money. But it's not to say that your post can't help the person who maybe can't afford to hire an IFA. Do you see what I mean? That content can appeal to everyone, but it's probably the business owners that are going to act on that type of content. So we've talked about where you started. We've talked about how you've manicured your content to speak to your ideal client avatar. Let's talk about the numbers in terms of leads. So how many times do you post a week at the minute, Ian?
I aim for 5 to 7. So I've started a little bit more of dabbling on the weekend, but I tend to leave that as more like a personal post, like what I'm doing with the kids, or if I'm at a football match or whatever it might be. But anywhere between, I mean, the sweet spot is anywhere between 3 to 7.
Okay,
Like,
so say 5, for example, you post 5 times a week, and you've been posting 5 times a week for the last 3 years.
yeah, I
Yeah.
had a break in the middle for about 10 months where I didn't post. That's another story.
Okay.
But then I've had to rebuild and start again. But it's consistency makes the difference. And
Mhm.
you might not see those results initially. It might take a while to get those wheels turning. Do you know
So
what I mean?
this is what I'm trying to build up to here. We've been doing 5 posts a month for 2 years, for example, because you've got that bit in the middle. After doing that consistently for 2 years, how many leads are you bringing in a week off the back of that content?
Okay, well, it varies because
Mm-hmm.
as with any other business and financial services, there are times a year when you're going to be busy. There are times a year when you're going to be quiet. Like we said at the start of this, before we kind of came on air, like this time of year tends to be quiet.
Quiet.
Naturally, people are away on holiday, but
Mm.
that's a great time to plan some other stuff. On the run up to Christmas, tends to be really busy until the start of December. Then it dies off again, and probably till middle of January. Then it picks up again for the end of the tax year. So it's there's cycles in this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to be aware of that. I've completely lost my train of thought. I've got on the right sidetrack.
No, no.
Now.
I was just asking how many leads you get per week.
Right.
No,
right.
but it's understandable. This isn't, guys, doing list. Sorry, I'm talking to people listening now. This isn't, you post 5 times a week for 2 years and you're going to generate this. It's not an equation. And a lot of people understand that. But it's just to get an input as to how many leads you get a week.
I would say a minimum of 5, a minimum each week. I've had posts in the past where I've had 12 leads by lunchtime. And
Wow.
I guess some of the challenges, as much as I kind of tailor me LinkedIn profile for business owners, I want to help everybody. I'll have a conversation with everybody and anybody to have access to a financial advisor to make better financial decisions. Because someone a long time ago said to me, a little bit of free goes a very long way. And I've done that on time and time again. And that individual has recommended me to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people that have then turned into clients. So you just, like, I'm very good at the big picture stuff and thinking, well, if I have a conversation with John Smith and he might not be my ideal client, I'll help him. 100% I will. I'll give him some help to go and do this himself or push him in the right direction. He will probably refer someone else.
And that's,
so
it's helping people, giving them a bit of free value, giving them lots of free value. Even you doing the 250 grand a car video, it was a bit funny, but it still give people a bit of knowledge.
Yeah.
So 5 leads a week with 37,000 followers. And the reason I say it like that, remember, 5 leads a week for 37,000 followers for posting 5 times a week. Now, those are the numbers that you should expect. So when somebody comes to you, and I'm talking to everybody listening, when somebody comes to you with this silver bullet of social media or guarantees you this X amount of leads for 300, 500, $1,000 a month, it's, most of it is BS, because you cannot generate good. Okay, you could probably generate crap leads that have been sold to everybody else, but by putting in the hard work and generating that audience, that's when you can get the consistent 5 leads a week. And that's what I just want people to realize, that it takes a lot of hard work to get to that point. But it's great because, like you say, with a piece of content, you can turn the tap on, turn the tap off, depending on how busy you want to be.
Absolutely. And I think, like, now I'm in a position where I know certain types of posts work. And because I'm busier with the work side and onboarding clients and all the rest of it, I'm not full flow on LinkedIn yet. I'm almost kind of probably at 50%. For me, it's all about information. There are certain types of posts that I put out that I can, after doing this for like a couple of years, that can guarantee I will get leads off the back of, guaranteed, because I've managed to figure those out. I've got about 3 or 4 different styles or different types of posts. And if I posted them consistently for a month, I'd be swamped. Like, I wouldn't be able to cope. But if I go back to the first time before I had a break, my diary was full 3 weeks in advance. I was probably working from 7 o'clock in the morning until 8, 9 o'clock at night. 90% of that stuff was from LinkedIn. And at that point, I was probably consistently getting maybe 10 to 12 a week. So it's doable to get a lot more than that. I'm just carefully controlling what I'm doing at this point in time to be able to have more control over it, rather than initially where I just opened the tap, full flow, went for it, and just got absolutely swamped, which was amazing.
Incredible. But you don't want your service level to drive You
It
know what
was
I mean? To
stressful as
drop
well,
because of
and
it.
that was
Yeah.
the first 3 months that I had in financial as self-employed, and they were back to back and consistently the best 3 months I've ever had in financial services in 17 years, like
And
one off the bat.
this is exactly why I wanted to get you on the podcast, to say to people, it is doable. You can win business on LinkedIn. You could do the same on Instagram or the same on Facebook or whatever you want to do it on. But please don't think it can happen overnight, because as humans, we want it now. And especially with the speed of delivery services and things like that, we want it now. And I would want it now. But just remember, it takes effort up front, but the results are fantastic, as what's Ian's spoken about here.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to get into the strategy question. But before we do, we like to donate £10 to a charity of your choice to say thank you for coming on the podcast. Which charity do you want us to donate to?
So I am a trustee of a charity called Man Up, and we talk about men's mental health. That's something that's quite close to my heart, and it's something that we don't talk about enough. We are aiming to change the story of men's mental health. We're a signposting charity. We don't offer direct support, but we signpost people to charities that do.
Fantastic.
That's the charity I would go to.
We will donate that for you.
Awesome.
So now, strategy question, which everybody loves on this podcast. We're going to pretend that you've moved to the north of Scotland. You've got a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection. What would you do to start generating new business?
It's a great question, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, you need a plan first of all. I think without a plan, you're just going to be slinging mud at a wall. I think you need to get a plan in place around, first of all, why are you going to the north of Scotland in the first place? What opportunity is going to exist up there? What do you want to achieve out of that? And these are questions that I ask clients, like, what do you want to get out of moving to the north of Scotland for the next 3, 6, 12 months, 5, 10, 15 years, and get really, really clear on it. And we're great at overestimating what we can do in a year, but underestimating what we can do in 10. So get really clear on that. Like, if you want to be generating X amount because that's your goal, let's say it's 100 grand a year. Why is 100 grand a year important to you? What's 100 grand a year going to do for you? And why is that important to you? And really visualize it. Like, I'm a big believer in doing this with clients, and it's visualizing what that 100 grand a year does. And that to the point of, if that 100 grand a year is going to give you a holiday, where you going on holiday, where you staying, what times a year are you going, who you're going with, what you're wearing, where you're eating, really paint that picture, visualize it. And then it becomes more powerful because you've got something to anchor yourself to, and you're building emotional engagement. So if you've got that before you go there, then you can start working backwards. And sometimes it's great to have that North Star, but you need to think about, like, what's the next step? So for me, it would be thinking about who your ideal client is and why. So why do you want to deal with your ideal client, and what are they going to benefit from you? So again, a bit of research probably before you go up there. Tell everybody and anybody you know that wants to hear it why you're moving up there, why you're doing it, what the benefits are going to be to you, your family, and whoever else is going there, what difference it's going to make to them in terms of the service they can expect from you. So you also want to be leaning into your existing network. I've wrote loads of stuff down, so I'm cheating a little bit by looking down here.
No, please. I love the prep for this. Please read away.
Tell everyone I know about that going up there and why. So that would be your existing network. You want to talk to brokers, colleagues, friends, family, every BDM that you've ever worked with in whatever industry you're in or financial services. Tell them you're moving up there. They'll be keen as anything to have a conversation with you, because a lot of BDMs, certainly in our industry, are knocking on the doors on a daily basis. If they've got somebody who's keen to have a conversation with them, that can open up so much stuff, technical knowledge, referral routes, everything. Have a really, really compelling intro offer for your first 10 clients. And it could be something really simple as you kind of go to, like, I do a mail drop in the area, or contact people at a local networking group and say something like, for my first 10 clients, I'm offering free pension reviews. Get an hour of my time. It's not going to cost you anything. And if you did that 10, 15, 20 times, guarantee you'll pick something up off the back of it, 100%. And it might be that you just get somebody who says, well, I've already got it with X provider. I'll give you 250 quid a month. You got your first client. You got your first client and deliver a service that blows the competition away. And then you get your second client off the back of it. And like we do in financial services, think short, medium, and long term. Like, what can you get right now? And that could be things like networking, could be your friends, family, colleagues. get into every single network event you possibly can, face to face, get meeting people. And someone, when I was at St James's Place, said to me on the course, make a plan to get your business card in your first year in front of 500 people. And that's just really stuck with me. Like, get your card out to as many people as you possibly can. Find people that have done it already. Like, if you know someone who's done this already, and no matter what industry it is, and they've started again, find them, talk to them, ask questions like, how have you done it, what you've done, because they'll have ideas that they wish they'd done that they implemented 2-3 years down the line that you could maybe implement from the start. Find every accountant, solicitor, mortgage broker, will writer in the area and go knock on their door. Knock on their door and say, I'm Ian Dempsey, I've just recently moved to the area, I'm an IFA, I'm going to be doing this. I was wondering if there's any support I can give for your clients. Some of them will say no, some of them will be quite impressed that you've done that. Some of them will take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to bring on board, but that's where the longer term stuff comes in. Maybe you do online presence is obviously huge, but that's more of a slow burn. And that is just give your information away, like give everything that you know, give it away for free. And if people choose you, great. If they don't, then you're helping someone else on that journey. Exactly like we've talked about already. But for your social media stuff, it's very easy for you to think, I want to do Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and all this, and LinkedIn. And it can just be overwhelming to do all of those at once. There's some great tools which you kind of showed me off air that can help you do that. But pick one that feels right. Pick one that your ideal client's going to hang around on, and really try and nail that. Use a coach if you can. So someone that can turbocharge those results. So rather than you kind of peeing around for 2-3 months to find something that works, find someone from day one who's done this and can turbocharge your results, because it'll make a massive difference. Obviously, it's going to cost a few quid, but you will get return on that investment if you find the right one, someone that resonates with you. It'll make a massive difference. I'm a big believer in having a mentor and a business coach. If you can find one, they will give you an extra set of eyes and ears that will look over stuff, call you out on your bullshit, because you'll tell yourself your own bullshit as well. You'll say that I can't do this, I can't do that, or the other, or the plan's going to fail. But another set of eyes and ears looking down with the top-down view, and that makes a massive difference. Read every single book and every article you can about lead gen, everything. So when you're on YouTube, sat in front of the sofa, just think to yourself, right, I've got 2-3 months to give this everything that I've got to get this turning. The hardest bit's getting it turning, but once you get it turning, it's easier to maintain it. And if you continue doing that stuff, you'll get to a point where you think, do I need to put the brakes on, or do I need to take someone else on? Do I need to outsource stuff? And that's kind of where I've got to at the minute. There'll be IFAs, if we're talking in an IFA world, around you that'll be looking to offload clients. There might be lower value clients. There might be clients that they just don't have a relationship with. You might be able to do it differently. Knock on their doors and ask them, because they might be willing to sell you a client back. They might be wanting to retire. Like, the easiest way for you to get clients is to tap into someone else's client bank, tap into those resources. And by doing that, you've got access to maybe 200-300 clients right from the start. Maybe you do that with an accountant, and you say, I'll offer every single one of your clients a free pension review, 20 minutes, half an hour with me, and I'll do it for free. You will work your ass off, but you will get business off the back of it. What's the last one here? Business cards one. And then just tweak and change it over time. Like, develop, change, test. And I remember speaking to someone who worked in marketing about 2 years ago, and they said marketing is all about testing. So just because something works now doesn't mean it's going to work in 6 months' time. Find out what works, change it, make it better, and just do that over a period of time. And the reason I say all this stuff is I've done most of it, and I'm confident now, because I came out of bank insurance, didn't have any clients, and had to start from scratch. I've left an employed role where I had a small client bank, and I've had to build on that. This stuff works. It's worked for me. Not all of it might work for you, but it's possible to do this stuff, because I've been there and I've done it. I mean, I wasn't 300 miles away, but I've had to start from nothing and build it. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much that you could be doing, and I think if you parachute and dropped in the middle of nowhere, like you said, with a laptop and a phone, it's fight or flight, and sink or swim. You're either gonna drown, or you're gonna think, right, this is the kick up the arse. I need to really get this going, and you've got to get busy. Like if it's one line, that would be from Wallace is just get busy. And if you get busy, stuff will come.
Mate, that's incredible. What an answer to that question. What I love is considering you've built so much of your business on social media, you hardly spoke about it. And that's quite inspiring because it shows that if you're starting again from scratch, yes, use social media, but maybe just park it for a bit. Similar to the channels, don't try and do everything at once. Let's just do one channel at a time, because you can do social media when you have the audience. You've got to tell people that you're there. You can't tell people that you're there on social media because they don't know that you're there. You're shouting into an empty room, whereas a lot of the practices you've spoken about there is telling people that you exist to start with. And I think that's a big step that we as business owners sometimes forget. We need to go and tell people that we're offering a product before we can shout about it on social media.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like use your social media stuff. Like social media is like when I first got started on LinkedIn, I remember like reading some stats and it said something like, it's probably changed now, but the average number of LinkedIn connections is 400 people. So if you've got a network of 400 people and every single one of those has got a network of 400 people, like you've got an opportunity every month to network with all of those people. Like go out there and do it. Like I got my first client off LinkedIn, I think when I was about 2,000 followers, but the vast majority of those were recruiters in the financial services industry or the financial advisors. So what I stripped those out was probably under 1,000. I've seen people get clients with under 200 followers. It's possible, but that's the slow burn stuff, ticking away in the background, putting the effort in. But like the other stuff, you've got to pay the bills straight away, haven't you?
That's what I was talking about in terms of social media. It's great when you've got that audience and it slow burns. If you are starting completely afresh, these are the type of things that you need to be doing that Ian's spoken about.
100%.
Ian, incredible episode. Thank you so much for coming on and imparting all of your wisdom. Where's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to reach out?
Simple. I'm on LinkedIn, so just Ian Dempsey. I've run my own limited company called The Money Man. It stands out from the grey corporate crowd, if you like. I've just started to dabble on Instagram. Don't have a website, don't need one. I think it'll come further down the line. But yeah, look me up on LinkedIn. That's where I'm at.
Awesome. Ian, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.